Yeah. Well, welcome back to another video, guys. It's Patrick and I, and we're going to talk about, clearly, some floorless shelters.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Perfect timing.
Starting off right behind us, the largest one of the bunch is the Luxe Octopeak 6-person. And then in the middle there is the Seekoutside Cimarron, and I think that is rated for a 4-person. 2 with stove, 4-person empty, but we'll get to the details on that. Pat's got some stuff to say about that.
Precisely.
And then the last one down the line there is the Luxe Mini Peak, and that's Patrick's newest edition. You got any? It's a 3-person? Is what I'm reading here.
I don't know if there's always
3-person.
Yeah, they're boastful on that. I don't, because I would say personally, without a stove, the Cimarron is a 3-person.
Okay.
At best.
Okay, but save that for the guts of the film here.
But I would say the Mini is a 1 to 2-person.
And they are all stove ready.
They're all stove ready. They're all floorless. They all have an option for like internal netting.
Like a tub.
We don't use them. They have all. We just seam sealed all of them. They're all pretty similar in design, but we'll get into some of the nitty gritty details and what makes them different.
We got notes on all of them right here, so stay tuned, guys. We're gonna dive into these 3 shelters right after the intro. What's up, guys? The first shelter we're going to dive into is the Luxe Octopeak 6-person. I'm going to roll through some specs here, and then we're going to kind of give you our thoughts on the shelter behind us. It's up and ready to dive into. So, all right. It says it is a 6-person, weather up to 4 seasons, winter tested, standard outer tent, 2.9 pounds. The size is a 6-person, up to 3 with a stove. See hot tent guides. Minimum pack space 20 inches by 4 inches by 4 inches, so it's pretty long in your pack. Might go, if you have the EXO, go in that external spotter pocket there. 4-person inner, 2 pounds, said that. It does not come with a center pole. It says center pole not included, extra guideline, see below. Includes 8 stakes, 3.9 ounces. Camping cotton max space, 85 inches by 30 inches. And then standard tent pack size, so that's ready to go, 22 by 6 by 6. So not bad. It's 2 pounds 9 ounces, or 2.9 pounds, I guess, 46.5 ounces. And it says it's a 6-person, and says it'll do 3 with a stove. But let's dive into it. Okay, so just looking at the external, comparing to the Seek, the obvious difference here is the height is a little bit taller on this one. I think it's like, Pat, do you know the difference? It's just a couple inches taller, yeah? Not sure? So we'll dive into that when we get down to the Seek. But the door, it's not a full length zip on the door, on the front entrance. There is 2 entrances on both shelters. The Seek and the Luxe both have a front and a rear entrance. So that way you're not clawing over a hot stove, or if your buddy's passed out, you don't have to crawl over him to get out and make coffee or start glassing or whatever. So it is nice that you have the 2 entrances on both shelters. But the main difference was that this one is a half. So as you can see, it's not a full, so you do have to duck to get in. But once you're in, I can stand up next to the pole. So not quite. If it's wet, you're not going to be stretching out right here. You're going to be touching your shoulders at the top. But there is a lot, like the footprint is larger. I wish I had the footprint notes on here, but I don't. Just have like the weight and stuff like that. But I would say that this shelter could definitely sleep 4 people. 6, I think, is insanely pushing it. And depending on weather permitting and how comfortable you are with each other, I'll just lay down where I could think 1 person could be, so you guys can do the judging. So 1 person could lay here, and then just kind of around the circle, and then maybe 1 in the middle. I don't know how you might be able to squeeze 6 in here, but I don't know. It'd be tight. It is stove ready, so you have the stove jack here, and then the stove would have to be right here next to the center pole. So that's kind of why it eliminates that couple extra people when it goes from summer mode to winter mode. It's just because that stove's got to be there, and you can't be sleeping next to your stove, or maybe you'll burn it down. Something strange. I do like the quality build. This pole is nice. It's a carbon fiber pole. The stitching all looks nice. Just kind of comparing it, Patrick will talk more about the Seek as he's lived in that thing. None of us have really lived in this per se yet, so we can't really talk too extensively on this particular one yet. We do have more experience with the Seek, and just a side-by-side comparison, looking at them head on, the Octo is definitely larger, but not significantly. It is it's just, you can tell it's a little bit larger. The footprint kind of stretches out a little bit because the height on this one goes up, I think, just a couple more inches. But that's just kind of at an eye at a first glance. But I would say that it's made well. I do like this feature that it comes with. You just kind of crank down on the guy lines and then it tightens up for you. The Seek does not have that, but you can of course do that yourself if you want to, but this shelter comes like that, so that's nice. That's really it. I kind of give the shelter a good solid 8 score. I like it. It seems very well built. It's well designed. The one kind of thing that I don't like straight out of the box against the Seek is just the front entrance isn't a full entrance. Not a huge thing, but I don't know, I guess maybe they do that because of the stove goes up right there next to it. But I'm not sure. We'll have Patrick give him some thoughts on this one before we move on to the Seek.
How's it going, guys? So Patrick here with P&W Wild. Some last specs to mention on this. So the tent itself, right to the peak here, is 6 feet, almost exactly. And all the way across, it's 10 feet. I'm not sure if that's to the corners on each side or to the flats on each side, but either way, you have roughly 10 feet all the way around, and it is an octagon, as the name would imply, so it's almost exactly 10 feet all the way around. It's definitely large. I would say if you were going to go in the summer or in an early season hunt with 4 hunters, I think you could get away in the Octopeak, just because of the fact that it is an octagon, so it doesn't waste any space in places. You could put all your gear in the middle, and I think 4 guys could spread out around the outside with pads and bags. Obviously, you add a tent and lots of late season gear, and that starts to, I mean, if you were really comfortable with the guys you were sleeping with, maybe 3, but we have found that if you get 2 packed in there for a late season hunt, it just becomes annoying. You're trying to eat and you're trying to sleep and all kinds of stuff. Bad weather hits. So I would say it's, in my opinion, this is a max 3 person with a stove, 4 person without a stove. Now it's time for the Seekoutside Cimarron. This is a shelter that myself, I know really well. I have a lot of faith in this shelter. I've lived in it for at least 10 or 15 days total, and one of those was an 8-day stint that it rained a lot and snowed a lot. So it is inside. It weighs 2 pounds 7 ounces. That's the weight of the canopy itself. If you add stakes in the carbon pole, it is 3 pounds 7 ounces. So you add the carbon pole and the stakes, you got an additional pound. Typically the way we do it is one person will carry the canopy, one person will carry the poles and the stakes. And that stake weight usually goes up because you find that if you actually guy it out properly and have extra stakes, you're probably gonna have more weight. The dimensions, it also says that it is 6 feet, which is matching to the Octopeak. Definitely the way they're set up, for sure right here, that is not true. They do not match at 6 feet, but it's probably capable of it, I would assume. The one place it differs and why the Octopeak is a little bit bigger is because this is essentially like an adjusted square. It's pretty much a square in shape, or a rectangle actually, because the two sides are different length. One side is 8 feet 6 inches. The other side is 9 feet 6 inches. So you have 8.5 by 9.5, making for more of a rectangular shape. So instead of being that octagon shape, which I think is more efficient, it's about 10 feet all the way across and makes a more efficient circle. This is more of a rectangular shape. So that's why, in my opinion, the Seekoutside Cimarron is definitely, it says here it sleeps 4 without a stove and 2 with a stove. I would say that the 2 with a stove is probably correct. I know that Bob and Dylan Dowson from Onyx Hunt and I just spent a day or 2 days in this. It is not 4-person without a stove. This is a 3-person max. 2-person preferred with or without stove. Just because of the shape, because you pretty much end up with 2 large sleeping areas and then kind of some wasted space. And that was where I ended up sleeping this last trip, was in the wasted space. So I had the pole right next to my stuff and I'm trying to sleep and I'm running into the pole. So in my opinion, 2-person max with or without stove. But I can say that 2 people can comfortably live in this shelter for extended periods of time with no issue. And then another strong pro to this shelter, I would say, is it is super robust, proven, and the stitching and the materials it's made out of are super solid, because Bob and I lived in rain, sleet, snow, and hail for 8 days. I mean, just constant onslaught. We were having to beat snow off of it, but still, just the way you see it now, without guy lines, it survived 8 days under those conditions. So definitely the big pro to this shelter, I believe, is that it is very, very stout, and I definitely have put it through its paces. It's been vetted for myself, and I believe that it'll do the job. Like Jeffrey was talking about with the Luxe Octopeak, one of the differences you'll find is the seat has a full-length door. So you open the door. They do have door retention on all of these. The Luxe is slightly different. The seat, you roll it up here, and then you expose this little clip system. And this is pretty nice because, like, you know, stuff gets pretty damp when you're sleeping at night, and it's nice to let all that humidity out if you have a nice warm day like today. But I'll show you another key feature of the Seekoutside products is this pole, this carbon pole that they make. We've actually bought one for the Luxe Octopeak because we found that this adjustable carbon pole is extremely high quality.
And I misspoke. The Luxe came with a pole.
It did come with a pole, yeah. It just wasn't. We didn't like that design as much as this design, so we decided to replace that pole with a Seekoutside pole. So because it's a rectangle, you can see that if I'm laying down, it's pretty much 1 person on this side of the pole. You have your own door, and then there's pretty much 1 person on that side of the door, and you have your own pole, or your that side of the pole, and you have your own door. The stove jack on the Seek is very, very high, right near the peak. So it's very high. So your stove ends up being literally right next to your carbon pole, which totally works. It's very functional. We found that definitely the longer run of chimney pipe that you have inside of the tent, the warmer the tent is going to get, because that chimney pipe itself is also emitting heat. So that's definitely very helpful. Like I said, though, they advertise this as being up to 4 people. Yeah, up to 4 people without a stove, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I just don't see it. I mean, I know they always overrate that stuff. I just don't see how 4 people could
Is that just 4 people with gear, you think, or are we talking 4 people, period?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I really frankly can't see where you would fit 4 people, even without gear, because I know I know we've always looked at the ratings and thought, man, that would be perfect, you know, if something this weight and this size could hold 4 people. But frankly, it's just one of those deals. It's just like ultralight backpacking tents, like tub tents. If it's a 2-person, it's really a 1-person. If it's a 3-person, it's really a 2-person, you know. And the beauty of floorless shelter is you're getting way more size to weight ratio, and then as well, you're going to end up with a lot more room for gear than you will in comparison to like a similar weight tent in a tub tent design. So Cimarron definitely checks a lot of boxes for us. We love this tent here at P&W Wild. It has done very well for us. We just re-seam sealed all of these tents to make sure they're good to go. This tent is definitely going to see more usage this year. It'll probably have a stove in it for the first time. Bob and I did not run a stove last year. So we'll report back if we run into any issues this year, but I really don't forecast anything as far as issues go with the Cimarron.
What's up, guys? I'm Bob. So this is a Seekoutside Cimarron. Patrick and myself stayed in this for high buck last year for a total of 7 or 8 nights, I believe, and it worked out perfect for 2 guys. We didn't have a stove. We could have ran one. I think if you were to add a 3rd person for high buck, you get a little more stuff. It might be tight with the stove, but you could probably do it. But anyways, come check it out. I think there's plenty of room, like I said, for 2 to 3 guys. I'm about 5'11", and this is about where I'm at, right in the middle. But I mean, for the most part, you're just gonna be sleeping in here, not really standing up a ton, but overall it's a great shelter. We've had a lot of wind, rain, snow, and it's held up fantastic. We did seam seal it, so I recommend doing that. But overall, I'd highly recommend this shelter, so check it out.
So last but not least, we have the smallest of the 3 shelters. This is the Luxe Mini Peak. It says it is a 3.5 season tent. I don't know what makes it not a 4 season tent in comparison to the others, but it seems to be all the same. It says that this is a 3-person tent with up to 2 with a stove. Once again, I'm not buying that. I don't know where that's coming from. The weight is actually right on par with the Cimarron. It almost weighs exactly the same as the Cimarron. This is 2.9 pounds. But where it saves is that the Cimarron is 3.7 pounds with the pole. The Mini Peak does not use a pole. It uses a trekking pole, or you can cut a piece of wood if you want to do that, or I think they offer an optional pole, but it does not come with it. And that's one of the reasons I like this shelter, is because it is the same weight just about as the Cimarron if I were to split it with one of the guys. But the reason I got this was to be a solo shelter when I'm by myself. It has very similar. It has shock cord here, and then in the corners it has a very similar adjustment system, just like the Octopeak does. Similar in design, it does the same thing. Pretty simple guy outlines on the end. This does have this optional stove jack, and it has very similar design vents as does the Cimarron. Very close in size and design. If I open it up, I can show you guys. It has the same door retention as the Cimarron. So you've got a interior hook and a little hook so you can hold the door open. This one is shorter. Let's see how tall it says it. It says that it is 5.25 feet tall, so you're 5 1/4 feet, and then it is 8 feet 8 inches, or no, 8.8 feet long and 8.2 feet wide. So it's definitely low. It's lower than the other two, but I will say it has effectively the usable room is close to the Cimarron. It's just that anytime you bring the height down, the pitch of your walls come in, and I will say it gets harder and harder and harder to fit gear and stuff. So the reason why this is, in my opinion, this is a one-person shelter is because, one, that weight, it's sub 3 pounds, which is pretty hard to beat. It does not require a pole. Right now it has a monopod holding it up, but a trekking pole does just fine at holding this up. So even with stakes, you're sub 3 pounds, and you can do extended stays. Solo, my plan for High Buck this year is to stay in this tent. Solo, Bob and Jeff are gonna take the Cimarron and run it as a hot tent. So they're gonna have a stove. I run pretty hot as it is and don't need a stove, so I'm just gonna live in this and have a little extra room for gear, I guess. But definitely, I know, I wish I had the price point for you guys on all 3 of these, because
I'll include it.
A relevant piece of information, but we'll include it there in the description and maybe a little graphic down below. But I know that the Mini Peak comes in cheaper than the Cimarron by a little bit, and I would say that they're definitely close in features. I think the prospective buyer, if you are mostly a solo guy, sometimes take a wife or a buddy or something, this is probably a great option. If you are almost always in a 2-person, you're hunting typically in a 2-person party, but sometimes have a third, you'd want to step up to the Cimarron.
Can you sit up there and eat supper?
Oh yeah, you can definitely sit up in this tent. You're gonna, and 2 people could realistically sit.
Because I could just be there and we could be
because
Chris.
Another person could be on the other side of this pole. So definitely 2 people can sit.
But there's just no way you could live life with a stove in there. With 2 people.
Negative. Nope. Yeah. As soon as you add the stove would take up right here, because the stove jack's right here in the door.
And that means you couldn't even use this door if you had a stove?
Yeah, no, you'd have to go out the other door.
Wow.
And then you're not, effectively, as soon as you add a stove, there's no way 2 people are sleeping in here, in my opinion. In my opinion, I even without a stove, like I said, I purchased this as a 1-person shelter. This is a solo shelter. My previous solo shelter that I used that was bomb-proof was 4.5, 5 pounds. And it was a tub tent, right? So to be able to shed 2 pounds, this thing is sub 3 pounds with stakes, and all I use is just a trekking pole to hold it up, so I don't have to carry any carbon pole at all. This is a win. So I think if you're that typically solo guy, but sometimes in the summer for scouting or maybe early season you run a 2-person, you take your wife or a buddy, this is a perfect tent for you. Definitely a good fit size-wise, and it's, as well, we should mention Luxe is a Washington company. So we love anytime we can to support a Washington company. We absolutely would love to keep it in state. And obviously we've purchased two Luxe tents because the price point is great, the quality is absolutely there, and it's a Washington company, and they're very easy to talk with. Anytime we've needed any questions answered, we've been able to get a hold of them.
We also use their Tyvek floors.
Totally, yeah, we use their Tyvek. If you listen to our podcast, you may have heard that they're a little bit loud. Pro tip, throw them in the wash, run them a couple of times. That's what I did with mine. So But yeah, I really like this tent. I'm excited to get out and use it, and we'll report back when we know how it goes. Thank you for watching this week's video. Feel free to smash that subscribe button and come on back next week for that next video